why doesn't jazz really translate today? Why is it that it's not translating? And I said, there are two things that are accepted that would never have been accepted. You cannot play not in tune and not in time. You have to be on the beat and you got to play in tune. If you have a band that all the people in the band trust each other, that's when music happens. And that's when magic happens with the music. Trust.
Lenny White, I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. One little thing.
Absolutely.
Venusian.
Venusian. Is it Venusian?
Is Venusian.
Venusian summer. Okay.
Venus. Not Venice.
Venice? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Everybody does it.
All right.
So it's okay. It's not a problem.
Well, it's a great record and everyone should go check it out. So that's what we're going to stay right there.
Yes.
So Lenny, obviously you are one of my absolute favorite drummers. I have loved you since literally I was in high school. The first time I heard Jaco Pastorius' solo record, one of my best friends, Nelson, he gave me a copy of that record. And I know obviously the bass playing is legendary on it, but as soon as I heard your drumming on so many of those tracks, I was just blown away at what incredible dynamic and groove that you had in the music. And there's so many other things I want to talk about. We're going to talk about Jaco and we're going to talk about Miles Davis. We're going to talk about all those things.
Sure.
But one of the things I'm really fascinated about is in these last 5 years, and even including before we got on this podcast, you were showing me, I don't know if you were showing me, but I caught you listening to some of your own music and you've been composing more and more and more these last several years. And what I find amazing about this is, in my opinion, you got to work with two of the greatest composers of the 21st century in both Miles Davis and Chick Corea. Both of those, I mean, if you were to ask me, I think who my favorite jazz song, composers are, I think you got to go Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, Chick Corea would be my top three on that list there. And as far as that goes, are there any lessons that you've learned from both Chick and Miles that have influenced your compositional processes that you've been exploring these last several years?
Without a doubt. I mean, I think that their translations of their music really, it encompasses all the different musical genres that I've experienced. But there's one other composer, for me, I think is one of the greatest composers of the 20th century, and that's Wayne Shorter. And I got an opportunity to work with Wayne, with Miles, and with Jaco. And the fact of the matter is, Wayne's compositions, Wayne wrote music for Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. He wrote music for Miles Davis. He wrote music for Weather Report. And he wrote his own music and some of his orchestral music and an opera that he wrote. It's fantastic. And he's always been one of my favorite people of all time. And to get to know him and to play his music was really special. And I'm not taking anything away from both Miles Davis and Chick Corea, but Wayne Shorter is one of my favorite composers too.
Oh, 100%. And Wayne Shorter is definitely up there for sure with me. What kind of things did you learn working with Wayne Shorter?
He was an interesting artist because of the fact that he could take music from anywhere and put it into the music that he was writing and playing. I think that he had such an imagination, and I think that knowing him and getting an opportunity to play with him, I have that same point of reference where I could take something from anywhere and put it into what it is that I'm playing and writing.
So, I guess obviously, like I understand where you're coming from with that, but is it more of a like were you able to see him compose and his methods? Like were you able to see like I mean, obviously you played with him. Did he just was he the kind of just hand you charts and get going, or was there instruction in
No,
how he presented stuff to you?
I played. I was fortunate to play, and no one's heard it yet. I was fortunate to play some music that he wrote for the Miles Davis Quintet that was orchestral music. And he had written this music, and they never got an opportunity to record it. And then he lost it. He found it after Bob Belden talked about the fact that he had lost this music. And while Belden was still alive, he found the music and he gave it to Wallace Roney. And I got an opportunity to do it with Wallace Roney. And this is some of the most dense and interesting music that I've ever played. It's really, really special. And I hope at some point it'll get to be heard by everybody. But it is really special music.
What's holding it back from coming out? Like I mean, I feel like Wayne Shorter would be a easy sell, you know. I mean, to put this kind of music out.
Yeah, but there are some estrangements with Wallace because Wallace owned that music, but he's passed
Okay.
now. And I'm not sure if it's going to get exposed and put out, but I'm telling you, it is some really fantastic music.
So this music, when Wayne is giving it, or you know, and whoever is giving it to you, but were how written out were the drum parts? Were there drum parts written out, or was
I
it
didn't have any.
really?
I didn't have any drum parts.
Okay.
Now, he might have written drum parts for Tony Williams. I kind of doubt it
Yeah.
because of the way that synergy of that band worked. Some of those tunes that Miles played with Tony, Herbie, Ron, um, was music that he wrote for Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. But if you hear what he wrote for Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, and then you listen to the music that that band with Wayne and Herbie and Ron and Tony did with Miles, it didn't sound anything like Art Blakey, you know. But you know, they were special people. They were musicians that were magicians, and you know, they were experimenting all the time. And talking to Ron said that Miles hired them to practice on the bandstand, and they experimented all the time. They took musical genres and musical forms and did different things with them. And they they were magicians.
When you say practice on the bandstand, what do you think he meant by that? Like, what do you think Miles and Ron were talking about with that?
I think that they were searching for things, and Miles had no problem letting them do that. No problems letting them search. That attitude and um, that approach really shaped how I listen to music still today.
In what ways does it affect the way that you listen to music? And when you're talking about listening to music, you're talking about as a drummer, like playing the music, correct? Is that
Well,
what you're
yeah, as a drummer, but as a composer too. Um, you know, trying to shape and put new shapes on musical approaches. Um, and taking forms and expanding the forms, doing different things with it. You know, in my teaching, I talk to my students and I ask them to try new shapes. Try playing in 4/4, but playing 5s, 7s, and 9s, which are odd phrases in the 4/4 setting. Because that's what I heard those guys do.
So it's more of it was a place to be free to experiment, is what I guess what you're
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
Wh-
Yes.
When
Changing shapes, changing the shape.
okay, okay. So it gives people that freedom to not feel not be adventurous as a musician, to try to go somewhere new.
Oh yeah, I think to be adventurous. I mean, Wayne Shorter said, "What jazz means is I dare you."
Dang, that's a heavy line. I love it.
It is.
That's a heavy line.
It is.
Oh man, I got to get that tattooed on my arm. I dare you. I love it. Okay, so uh obviously like I love Wayne Shorter. Compare that with like the way that like Chick Corea would hand you music. Like, and I guess because I'm so fascinated with Return to Forever. I think, obviously of they're one of the greatest jazz groups of all time. And obviously like with Wayne, there's a certain way of communicating the music, but Chick Corea is another one. And I feel like with Chick, there is a much more um like it seems like it makes you like okay, let me back up. One of the things I love about you, one of the things I love about you as a drummer, is I told several people I was interviewing you, obviously because you're a legend and whatnot, but I told them, and one of the things that kept coming up is people don't talk about you in the same way that they talk about like a Tony Williams. When they talk about you, they talk about how great you are I love Lenny on this Jaco record. I love Lenny on this Joe Henderson record. I love Lenny on Bitches Brew. And the thing I think I pull from that is that you are a drummer who, um, no matter what ensemble you're playing in, you do a super job of making the other musicians sound better around you. That's one of the things I really do love about your playing. And so I guess one of the things I'm fascinated about is whether it's Miles Davis, whether it's Chick Corea, whether it's Wayne Shorter, you make them all sound better. And I guess my question is when you are playing with like a Chick Corea, like how does his approach to introducing new songs to you affect the way that you play the drums?
It actually helps shape that. See, the thing about Chick, which is great, Chick had great time, great rhythm. He could play drums, and he did that while he played notes. And so it was really nice to be able to shape what it is you play by the notes that a composer wrote. Chick's compositions were great compositions, and it gave me the opportunity to play rhythmically some things that were not really straight up and down because the way the notes flowed helped me focus and do something different that I would not normally do. Like the first tune that I played of Chick's that was really interesting to me was Captain Senor Mouse. Yes. And it was so great because Chick had a way of taking notes and putting it on both sides of a beat. Something would go dot, 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 dot. And that was really slick because it gave you that option to do those kinds of things and make it sound really cool because the notes did that. The music went that way. And then once I got an opportunity to listen to Chick's compositions and find out Chick's groupings, then I could play with those groupings. and it really made it really such a great uh, journey to do that, and to do that, and for Chick to do the same thing.
So, but I think what I'm really fascinated is with these records, especially with Return to Forever, is where when he would hand you like does he come in and like, hey guys, I wrote this song called medieval overture, and it goes like this, and here's the synth sound I'm using. Was there any like exploratory nature in those like learning of those tune processes? Like, I mean, they're just so all over the place. How much of that was
Yes.
written beforehand?
Well, most of it was written, and I'm not the greatest reader in the world. So what I would do was I would take the opportunity while they were rehearsing the notes is to listen to it and learn these groupings. And so I didn't read what those groupings were. I kind of played them and memorized them. And then I could do different things with it. I didn't have to do exactly what was on the page. And I think it got to be a great learning process and composing process. While Chick had composed this music and wanted it to be a certain way, I kind of listened to that music and composed my part on it as opposed to playing what was written as a drum part.
So are you listening like while they're in rehearsals? Like, because I
Of
imagine
course.
they got to be
Yes.
working out, Al Di Meola or and
Yes.
Stanley Clark playing these crazy lines. You have to be like, okay,
I know. It was kind of crazy. And, I had been listening to Yes, King Crimson. And so my prog rock influence got into, I say, well, Chick, why don't we try this sound as opposed to just playing this? Why don't we try this out? So we kind of got to that point where we got to an experimentation with the different sounds. I mean, and at that time period, new synthesizers were happening. Synthesizers were coming to a point where like they were going to really influence how the music sounded. And that helped.
yeah, because I mean, it was what the mid '70s, like 75, 76. The
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's interesting point because I do see a parallel between jazz fusion and prog rock because I'm a massive fan of both, and
Yeah.
hearing the way that I also like I was a big Yes fan, and then I got into fusion right after, and then that led me into more typical types of jazz forms. So I can definitely see where bringing that aspect would come in.
Well, Banner, one of the things that is very interesting to me is when we think about the music of the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, one of the real phrases that really people didn't use, they did use prog rock and then rock and then fusion, but they didn't really say that they coexisted. That music, all those musics coexisted and it created new forms. I mean, like hip hop and jazz, they coexisted, but they were talked about two separate ways, totally different ways, to the point where, oh, that's old school or this, blah, blah, blah. But those musics coexisted and it created this thing that was called hip hop. And then, you know, smooth this or smooth that. But those musics coexisted and created these new musical styles and forms.
Yeah, another thing that's crazy too, I don't think people realize this looking back, is like a lot of those groups like Return to Forever and, Weather Report and Mahavishnu, they were playing to massive crowds at the time. Like
Yeah.
10,000, you guys played to several 10,000 seat shows. I mean, you guys played arenas a couple times.
Well, one of my most vivid memories is that we played at the Schaefer skating rink in Central Park. And that rink, the skating rink, held 7,000 people. And when we played there, they broke down the fences and there were 12,000 people there. 12,000 people with a band that did not have a single on the radio and did not have a singer. And that right there made me say, wow, okay, man, we have something going on here, because there's 5,000 extra people here in this. It wasn't even an arena then. They had broke the fences down, and like it was, 12,000 people there, and in a 7,000 held arena. So
How do you think jazz fusion became this? I mean, it's one of the most commercially successful areas of jazz ever. I mean, to think, Charlie Parker was playing in small clubs most of his life to, 40 or 30 years later, you're breaking down walls at Central Park, right? Like,
yeah,
what do you think led to the commercial success of, quote unquote, I know a lot of people don't like this term, but jazz fusion of the 70s? What do you think led to that? What do you think was the factors that led to that breaking through?
virtuosity. See, if you think about it, classical music was virtuosic music, and it held a certain audience that came for that. Jazz music was virtuosic music, but because of the fact that it was frowned upon by certain parts of society, it didn't get the it didn't get what it was supposed to get. So you have this now supposedly jazz rock together, and there's the virtuosity that music had, and the power of the rock and roll that it had. It was unlike anything before. So, not taking anything away from the rock audience, but putting together the fact that these were jazz musicians that had this virtuosic way of playing, and with the power of the rock and roll, this was something that nobody had witnessed before. And so but here's the thing about it, yes, it was very, very successful, but why wasn't it as successful as it should have been?
Do you think it should have been more successful?
Oh, it should have been way more successful.
Why do you think it didn't get more successful?
I think it was a ploy
In what way?
for it not to be successful.
I understand, but I mean, do you think there was like people that were against it? Like, I mean, I
Oh,
don't think it.
there were people that were against it. I mean, see, what happened is that there were things that were implemented that made the community turn on itself. So the jazz musicians thought we were selling out. The rock musicians said, well, they're not playing rock. So there was this whole thing that was going on. So they made the community turn on itself and start to eat itself.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that jazz is I feel like it kind of eats itself almost throughout the whole history of its existence. It feels like somebody's always attacking whatever's successful. I definitely feel that.
Yeah, when Miles, see, here's the thing. when Miles did Bitches Brew, his reason for doing, or his modus operandi for doing that, he said, man, these rock musicians are playing 2 chords and making millions of dollars. I've been playing this music, the music that I've been playing, I've changed music 5 times, and I don't get the same dap that the rock musicians get. I can create the greatest rock and roll band in the world, and I'm going to show you. He took all of these young jazz musicians and created his version of rock and roll. And that's what Bitches Brew became. And it was amazing because we didn't know what he wanted to do, but he got the musicians that he wanted to change the sound and make what he thought was the right way to play this rock and roll. It was his version of rock and roll. All jazz musicians playing his version of rock and roll.
What do you think influenced Miles in the adaptation of rock and roll into his
Jimi
world?
Hendrix.
Okay, that seems fair.
Jimi Hendrix, Sly Stone, and James Brown.
Really?
They were all black musicians that created such a great following playing the music that they played. He wanted to have that same following playing his version of what he thought that they should be playing. This is Miles Davis, man.
Yeah.
This is Miles Davis who changed music 5, 6 times.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think, though, looking at Bitches Brew and thinking of it as a rock record, obviously, like, it's hard for me to think of it as a rock record, but
of course it is. You know the reason why?
Why?
The reason why is because they said that we played rock beats. Jack and I didn't play rock beats.
Yeah, I don't hear.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly right.
It
But
sounds nothing like Led Zeppelin, you know? Like
no, and Led Zeppelin was one of my favorite bands.
Yeah. So,
but see, that was my version of Led Zeppelin played under a Miles Davis perspective.
So, but was that like going into that record? Did you know that was what he was going for? Did he make it like clear? Because from what I understand, Miles is very, every word carries 1,000 pounds when he gave advice to musicians. So, I mean, did you know going into that what he was going for? It must have been okay. So like I've done a few sessions as a musician, obviously nowhere near the amount that you have, but, and normally when I go into a session, I usually have a pretty good idea of what the artist wants, even for some outside stuff that's crazy. But this must have been like, okay, he wants me to do what? And as far as I understand it, they'd have 3 or 4 drummers playing at the same time. You know, I know you, Tony Williams.
No. There was 13 musicians.
Okay.
13 musicians playing at the same time. Okay. No.
Were you all in one room? Were you all in one room doing it?
Yes. Oh, my God. There was 2 drum set players and 2 percussion players. So that's 4 drummers. 2 different bass players, acoustic bass and electric bass. 3 different keyboard players, guitar player, trumpet, sax, and bass clarinet. 13 musicians playing at the same time. It was the most African perspective that I had ever been involved in because I hadn't played with that many people playing at the same time, trying to be trying to coexist and play music that was not sounding like a cacophony of sound. And what he said to me was, think of this as a big pot of stew. I want you to be salt. That's all he said.
But what does that mean?
Exactly.
What does that mean?
Okay. Let's check this out. See, so from that perspective, this is one of the first records I ever did in my life. So that perspective is how I visioned the rest of what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So you understand that this guy said this to me, and after doing it and playing it, I know what he meant. But at the time that he said that to me, I had no idea, man. I'm freaking out. This is Miles Davis. Oh my God.
Yeah. And you were like 18, right? You were like 18,
yeah,
19?
I was 18, 19 years old.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. But that perspective, now 360, going back to what it is that I talked about Wayne and Chick and Miles, these are the guys that I first started my career with. Where am I supposed to go from what they did? They opened up 3 different portals forever. That's what I started with. You understand my point?
That's wild. That's so wild. Okay, so I have a ton of questions about Bitches Brew. I wasn't planning on making this a Bitches Brew podcast, but let's go with it. So okay, so what kind of room are 13 musicians? I mean, is it just like a big, large open room studio?
Yeah, it was Columbia Studios. Actually, that was on 52nd Street in Manhattan, and it was a big open studio. They were experimenting. We were all part of an experiment. Miles had a perspective of what he wanted, and he handpicked these musicians to get them to do what it is that he heard. He would come in and say, "Yeah, no, try this, no." It was an experiment with him. And when he got what he wanted, and then he and Tio put it together afterwards, man, that was amazing. I mean, I was one of the only people that got to hear the Rushes. He invited me to his house, and we would sit and listen to the Rushes of what happened that day.
When you say rushes, what do you mean? What do you mean?
The tapes.
Oh, the takes. Oh, okay.
Takes. There were not a whole bunch of takes, and then there was a take, and he would listen back to it, and you go back the next day and do this. And now there's you can go online and go to what is it, the something of Bitches Brew, the outtakes. There are the outtakes of Bitches Brew, meaning that we would go and then do another take and do that. And then they would take this take and that take and splice them together.
Okay.
And create. So it was ambient. It was like we were doing ambient music. It was like the original first jam band.
Yeah, it's a vibe. Like Bitches Brew is much more a vibe than anything else, I feel like. Like I don't feel like
Spanish Key was a thing, man. He had worked that out, and see, he had the band with Chick, Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland, and Wayne had done some touring, and he took that band and augmented it, and that's how Bitches Brew got made.
Now, when go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. I'm not gonna stop you.
No. And also, what happened was Tony had called John McLaughlin from England and brought him over to play in his band, which is Tony Williams' Lifetime. He had he had John McLaughlin and Larry Young. And that was Tony Williams' Lifetime. That organ trio really flipped everybody on their ear, because that was the first real fusion band, along with Larry Coryell's band, Free Spirits. But those were the first guys that started to do this thing that was taking the jazz perspective, certain kind of chords and beats, and playing them in this other way that had a backbeat to it. And so Miles wanted to produce Tony's band, Lifetime, and Tony said, "No, that's okay. I don't want to do that." So Miles called a session, which was In a Silent Way. And Tony showed up to the session, and John McLaughlin was on the session. And so Tony said he would never play with Miles again after that. That's how I got on the record. It was supposed to be Jack DeJohnette and Tony Williams, but no. And Tony suggested that I play on that record. That's how I got on the record. I played with Jackie McLean. Tony played with Jackie McLean when he was 16. And I was 17 and played with Jackie McLean. And everybody said, "Oh man, you're playing with Jackie McLean. Tony Williams played with Jackie McLean. So you're going to play with Miles next." I said, "Yeah, right. I didn't put it, at all." And sure enough, Tony Williams is responsible for my first 2 major records, because Freddie Hubbard had asked Tony to do Red Clay. And he said, Ron, Herbie, and Tony were doing everybody's records, and Miles was really pissed because they were doing. And so they said that they were not going to do that many records as a rhythm section anymore. So Tony suggested that I play. That's how I got on Red Clay too.
Oh man. Okay. So I definitely want to talk about Red Clay, because that's, honest to God's, my favorite jazz record of all time. But I still want to talk about Bitches Brew, because I'm still fascinated. And okay, so going into that room, because the thing about Bitches Brew, besides it being such an amazing record, is it's this catalyst event in jazz, because it took all of these amazing musicians that are in that. Just the lineup is stacked for that record. When you went into that room, did you know like how much talent was in that room, or how much impact? I can't imagine you knew everybody in that band at that point. Did you?
No. Yeah, I went to Miles called me. Okay. See, okay, I got to go down. We went down the rabbit hole now.
We're down. We're in Wonderland, man. Let's go.
So I played this gig in Jamaica, Queens, at a club called the Aphrodisiac, and Rashid Ali played drums, and I played drums, and I think Benny Maupin played on that gig too. And there was a trumpet player that was Miles's friend. His name was Dion. And he played on the gig. So after the gig, Dion comes to me and said, "Hey man, has Miles ever heard you play?" I said, "No." He said, "Man, I'm going to tell him about you." I said, "Yeah, okay." I said, "Yeah, right. All right. Yeah. And sure enough, I got a call Miles called my house, and my mother picked up the phone, And she said, "Who is this?" And he said, she said, "You got to speak up or else I'm going to hang up the phone, And so anyways, she handed me the phone, and it was Miles. And he said, "Can you be at my house, certain time tomorrow for a rehearsal?" I wasn't driving then. So I had a friend who had a car. And he freaked out more than I did. "Oh, I'm gonna take you to Miles' house." Oh, wow. And so he said, all I need to bring was a cymbal and a snare drum. So I brought my rod cymbal and a snare drum. And it was DeJohnette, Chick, Wayne, Miles. And all we rehearsed is the beginning part of Bitches Brew. Doodle doo doodle doo doodle doo doodle doo.
Yeah.
Do do do. That's all we rehearsed. And he said, "Be at Columbia Studios tomorrow at 10 a.m." And I was there at 9:30. The cleaning lady let me in, and I was setting up my drums and everything. And everybody was setting up. Jack came in. He was setting up next to me. And Miles comes in and he presses on the talkback. He said, "Hey, Jack." He said, "Yeah, Miles, tell that young drummer to shut up." That's the way the session started.
Were you talking a bunch? Were you being nervous?
I was just going, so I was mesmerized from the first part of the session, man. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But no, and listen, that session was done 3 days in August. It was started 24 hours after Jimi Hendrix played the last note at Woodstock.
What? Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. That's amazing. Holy crap.
Yeah. And so that was in August. In October, I woke up out of a dead sleep. Said, "I recorded with Miles Davis." Oh, snap. Whoa.
Yeah.
And what was profound to me was that it was documented. So now it was documented that I made this record with Miles Davis. So it wasn't like, "Oh yeah, man, I played with Miles once. I sat in with Miles once."
No.
This was
your
for
name's
the
on
rest of the life of the planet that this was documented.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So
now, were you surprised at all at the reaction that it got when it came out? Like, were you surprised? Not for, I guess, for even before that, were you surprised at the record at all? You did say you listened to it before it came out, right?
yeah, I got an opportunity to hear it because what happened is how I heard these snippets or these segments was totally different than when I heard the record. For instance, Pharaoh's Dance. Pharaoh's Dance has 19 edits.
Oh, really?
19 edits. And when I heard Pharaoh's Dance, when we did it, it had a bridge. That bridge no longer existed when the record came out. It was really deep. I mean, Miles invited me to his house and we were sitting listening to these takes. Nobody else. We were sitting listening to these takes. And so for instance, Joe Zawinul heard this on the radio, heard it on the radio. He said, "Man, what is that?" And somebody said, "That's the record that you just made with Miles Davis." And he couldn't believe it, But yeah.
What was your initial reaction to hearing it, like at the final form?
One of the initial reactions to me was, you'll laugh at this. people were saying, you know, I was going to this was my freshman year in college or
Yeah.
whatever, and people were saying, "Why are you here?" I said, "What do you mean? You recorded with Miles Davis. Why are you here, man? Why are you still in school?" You know,
Yeah.
and
And you
so
weren't even studying music at that point, right? You were studying like
no,
painting or
I was
something,
art.
right?
I was
Yeah.
an art major. I was going to New York Institute of Technology. I was an art major, and people say, "Hey man, I heard you made a record with Miles Davis. What's the name of it?" I said, "Bitches Brew." "Oh, Witches Brew?" I said, "No, Bitches Brew." "Oh, Witches Brew?" They couldn't believe that the record was called Bitches Brew. That was deep in itself,
Yeah.
you know.
That's wild. It's wild.
And it was a real interesting perspective because I was part of a group that had gotten with an iconic musician that had changed music for the past 10, 15 years. Kinda Blue was 1959, 58. Bitches Brew was 69. In 10 years, the music had totally changed by the same guy that changed it 10 years before. So for me, it was kind of a great feeling to be a part of this new movement. And man, I can't tell. See, and that's the first time I had played with Chick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, it was interesting that there's this galvanization. Is that a word? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Galvanization. Yeah.
Yeah, of these different people that had played on this particular record. And 3 or 4 years afterwards, they amalgamated, and Wayne and Joe Zawinul had played together. Chick and I had played together. You know, so there were these different bands that now were vaulting this movement that had started on this record.
Oh man.
It became something really deep, man.
Yeah. It really, and you can all pinpoint it all to that record. Like that's the crazy thing about it is it's just the whole like you said, like rock, jazz, fusion, whatever you want to call it. Like
It was
you
jazz rock.
yeah,
We
jazz
called it
rock,
we called
jazz.
it jazz rock because we were jazz musicians playing our version of rock and roll.
Yeah. So the jazz rock that became huge and let you to play to 12,000 people in Central Park. Like you can pinpoint it to this record. Like this is where everything came from, that room, into this whole new genre of jazz. It was just unbelievable and so cool that you got to experience that.
But Tony Williams was the guy to me that started that movement. No, don't get. I'm not taking anything away from uh, um, Free Spirits. I'm not taking anything away from Larry Coryell.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a guitar player, man. I love my Larry Coryell.
Oh, of course, yeah, yeah. But Tony Williams is the guy because he took the epitome of jazz organ trio. I mean, like with a quintet, jazz trio, sextet. These are things that jazz, you can pinpoint them and say, oh yeah, cool. Those are the
Yeah.
seminal ways that jazz music was translated. He took that translation and tore it apart and said, man, when we heard Tony Williams' Lifetime, Emergency, that record, forget it. It was unbelievable. Had never heard anything like that. We had never heard that before.
Yeah, I've actually never listened to the early Tony Williams Lifetime. I've listened to the stuff he did with Holdsworth, Alan Holdsworth, and that's this. I love that stuff. There's one particular song. I think it's called Mr. Spock for
Yeah,
with Alan
yeah,
Holdsworth, and Holdsworth just goes off. And I think it's is it Alan Pasqua, the
yeah.
keyboard player. Oh
Yeah.
man, they kill it on that. And so
Yeah.
I'm
Tony
gonna
Newton. Yeah, that that was some great music, man.
yeah. But you said it's called
Well, see,
Emergency.
Tony Williams to me is God drums. So
I, I can't disagree with you on that one, man. He's a
yeah.
monster. Okay, so we talked about this record for a minute earlier. Um, I love Bitches Brew, but honestly, my favorite record, if you've had a gun to my head, pick a favorite jazz record, my favorite would be Red Clay. Red Clay is just it's funky, it's adventurous, the melodies, it's slick. It just everything I love about jazz is on that record. And every player on it is an absolute monster. Yourself included, obviously. Um what do you remember from those sessions of working on Red Clay?
Oh, okay. So I had done Bitches Brew, and I have this iconic oil can bass drum. An oil drum that they have. Well, there's a friend of mine who made a bass drum from an oil drum. So it was metal bass drum. And Elvin Jones wanted to buy it. I got it before Elvin bought it. So I had this. And I used it on Bitches Brew. So Freddie Hubbard calls me and says, "Yeah, can you come up to, Rudy Van Gelder's on this particular day, blah, 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 blah." And he says, "Can you make a record?" And I say, "Who's on it?" He said, "Ron Carter, Herbie Hancock, and Joe Henderson." And so, like, I'm talking to him like this on the phone. And on the phone, I said, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool." But if you actually saw what I was
Yeah,
doing, I was
yeah.
going like this. So, okay, here it is. I got called to go and play on this record that was going to be recorded at Rudy Van Gelder's studio in Inglewood Cliffs, the same place that John Coltrane had recorded A Love Supreme, the same place that Herbie had recorded with Tony and Ron and Freddie Imperial Isles, at the same place that all of these classic records had been made, and I'm going to record there. I was freaking out. Whoa, man, So I go there and I bring my bass drum. So we're setting up, and I hit my bass drum, and it's very resonant. Boom, boom. And Ron Carter said, "No, no, 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 man. You can't use that, baby. No, 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 you can't use it. Man, if you hit that bass drum, man, you're not gonna hit no bass. You're not gonna hit no bass. You can't use that, baby." So Rudy goes in the back with a whole bunch of boxes, and he finds this 26-inch bass drum
What?
with wait, check it out, with a moonlit lake painted on the front bass drum. And it sounded like, to me, it sounded like cardboard. And I was like, "Oh, man, here it is. I got my opportunity to play with Ron Carter,
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock, Freddie Hubbard, and
Yeah.
Joe Henderson. And I got to play this crap over here." Oh, so that's my biggest memory of that I had to play that bass drum through that whole album. I didn't listen to it for a while because I heard every mistake I made, and I just didn't like the sound. And then after a while, I heard young drummers that had listened to that record making the same mistakes that I made on the record. I said, "Oh, now I can listen to it. It's okay."
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
So 26-inch bass drum is insane for jazz. Like that's
Yes, I know. It was a big band bass drum.
yeah.
You
So
know.
some Gene Krupa level stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of vibe. It was actually Gus Johnson's bass drum.
Really?
That's what Rudy had said that was. Yeah.
And did that just like I mean, when you brought that in, did everyone just go like, or I mean, because it seems like Ron Carter was the one obviously who was most upset about the bass drum. Was he like, okay,
Yes.
that works? He was fine with
Yes.
it.
But Creed Taylor was the producer,
Okay.
and that was one of the first CTI records,
Yes.
and it became a big hit. So what could I say? you know, I remember. See, my friends at that time period that we were doing this. I mean, Dave Liebman used to have a loft on 19th Street. He had the top floor. The second floor was Dave Holland, and on the bottom floor was Chick. So we would all get together and do sessions and play jam sessions and all that stuff in that building. And Randy and Michael Brecker and Carl Schroeder, a bunch of Steve Grossman, we would all get together. And so when that record came out, I remember Randy saying, "Man, I felt so good because one of us had made it. One of us had gone to the next level and done it, you know."
Now, on those Red Clay sessions, one of the things I really love, and obviously one of the things you're known for, is kind of bridging the gap between straight ahead jazz and funk. And I feel like that record really, um, I mean, obviously pitches Brew, but in a more traditional jazz setting, which I feel like Red Clay is. Obviously, you go to town, you play jazz, and you rip and solo just like everybody else. But especially Red Clay is just, I mean, it's one of the funkiest grooves. Was that an intentional thing? Like, was that something that, I mean, I'm not saying like,
No, no,
because
no, 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 no. This, all right. Check this out.
yeah,
This is one of the things, you know how like there are segments in your life where you look at something, you say, wow, that's happening now. I remember doing that such a long time ago. Now, all the young drummers take their wallets and put it on the front, put it on the snare drum so they could get a certain kind of sound. I used a rubber mat that when it was raining outside, you'd come in and you wipe your shoes off on the mat. That's what I used on the snare drum on Red Clay to
wow,
get that sound that
yeah,
everybody tries to recreate now.
yeah,
This is 1970.
yeah.
So, yes, that was intentional. It was intentional to do. And on Red Clay, see, Freddie came to me, he said, "Hey man, I need a beat." And
Okay.
so I just listened to what the bass line was and recreated it. And now, I mean, Freddie's no longer with us, but for at least 20 years after we did that record, and I would see Freddie, he said, "Hey man, you made me a lot of money, man. You made that beat. You made me." I said, "Yeah, but you didn't give me any of it."
Yeah. So,
So,
but so Red Clay was just like, give me a beat, and that's what you came up with? Was just
yeah.
that?
Mhm.
Wow. God, that's insane. Because that's one of the funkiest things I've ever heard. Like, especially when you lock in with Ron Carter and that bass line. I mean, it's so cool because Freddie Hubbard's line that he and Joe Henderson, when they play together, it really has this it feels like it could be like a bop tune. Like it feels like it could
Yeah.
be a bop tune. But all of a
Well,
sudden it's and then it has this
but
big
see,
groove on it.
Banner, but what it's come to me and what I talk to with my students, it's about and anything, artists, and how artists take what it is that they hear or feel and give it to you. That's a translation. So everything is about translation. And fortunately for me, I got an opportunity to work with two iconic artists, excuse me, that were changing their jazz translations at the same time. These two trumpet players were like major guys in the translation of jazz in the late 60s into the 70s. And I got an opportunity and to be fortunate enough to make records with them that showed what their new translation was going to be and which would translate the music for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I would still even say even today, like, the like there's now editions of the real book that say like jazz funk feel.
I know.
And it's you. It's like you're the guy who did it. That's what's so crazy. And so I mean I remember when I was in music school. This was 15 years ago. But somebody brought in. I think it was one of the I think it was the ninth edition or whatever, the real book, and they brought in. It showed like there's songs in there, and it's like even now, so much of jazz, what people expect live a lot of times is kind of a more funky thing. It's much more of a um it's not it's a lot more behind the beat than I think a lot of people what is before you came along.
Yeah, a couple of things, Benham. One is a guy asked me, there's a bunch of papers that I've been involved with people in the artistic community. They've asked me questions and they put it together with the paper that they were writing on. And one guy asked me, he said, why doesn't jazz really translate today? Why is it that it's not translating? And I said, two reasons. I said, this is the first time, in the 21st century, this is the first time since probably the 17th century that there are two things that are somewhat acceptable that would never have been acceptable from the 17th century to the 20th century. I think that this generation, and just this is a general thing, there are two things that are accepted that would never have been accepted. You cannot play not in tune and not in time. You have to be on the beat and you got to play in tune. And those things are acceptable today. That's why real jazz music doesn't translate.
Now, when you're talking about not playing in tune or playing in time, are you talking about like the fact that we need like, Melodyne and auto tune and beat grid? Is that what you're coming? Okay. All right.
I didn't say it.
I did.
Now, see, and check this out. Not just saying that, but those things and that attitude. I'm not saying that we as artists all have that attitude, but the attitude has changed in how people live, and it's affecting the planet because it's not in line with the planet. I'm telling you.
What do you mean by that? I mean, that's a bold statement, Lenny. I mean,
Here's a bold statement. Look at things. Look how things have changed. There were things that for so long were the reasons why we lived the way we lived. Those things have changed. Trust, religion, laws, those things have been changed. So that's changed how we live, and that's changed how we play and listen to our music.
damn, that's deep. That's deep stuff, man.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say disagree with you too much on that. Like, I think there is. What you think too is like music is all about vibrations, right? And if
That's
you
just exactly right.
and if you alter those natural vibrations, you can change you change the energy that comes off of it. The energy is no longer like a pure, energy that comes out.
I mean, look, we're getting floods, we're getting earthquakes, and not that we never had that. I'm not saying
Yeah.
we get fires, all of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff, man.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on, man, for real.
You heard it here, folks. Lenny White is blaming auto-tune for the destruction of mankind right now.
No. There's actually a book, I think it's called, I forgot, The Secret Power of Music. I think the author was David Tame. And he said that you could look at any ruling civilization, the downfall of any ruling civilization, to the debasement of their music.
I guess so. I can't really think of anything that would disagree with that.
Yeah, listen, I'm not trying to preach. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to do that at all. It's just that I coexist with the music. And I've seen I've lived through periods of time where the music was great and it spurned new artists that continued to be great artists. Now everybody's good, and good is the enemy of great.
Dang. You dropping all. That's amazing. I'm gonna start using that now. I love that.
Well, I
Oh.
didn't. That's not mine. I
No,
mean,
but
there's
no,
people have
I
said
know,
that.
but the context in which you used it in though is everyone's now good. You're right. Like nobody's great because everyone's good. You
Yeah.
know, it's very rare you find someone that rises above because the barrier to entry is so low now to be good.
That's right.
So it's a really deep point, and I think it's a good conversation to have about music. Is what does uh, what does constitute great music, and what are the the statutes that one has to meet to make great music. Do you
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yes.
But I think that also differs person to person. I mean, there's probably things that you love that I would hate, and there's probably things that I love that you would hate. That, and so
I think, but I do think they are more in tune than you would think.
I could say
Not
that. Yeah, I could say
see
that.
because yes, I have certain integrity that constitute what creates good music and what creates my reasoning for trying to continue to create making good music. My integrity.
I mean, that's I think I understand that 100%. I think that's you're by having your own rules to make music, I think is the most important thing. Like you have to have rules and stick by them. I think that's what I mean, obviously it's but I feel like that's what you're talking about there. Is you have your rules for how you make music and you stick to them, right? Is that what you're talking about when it comes to like musical integrity?
Yes, yes. You know, I got an opportunity to make music with great musicians and try to continue to make great music even though I'm not making it with those great musicians, but try to keep an integrity level at that level. So, you know, my aesthetic, what I do have is an aesthetic. And when you think about what aesthetics mean, if I was to say, if great music was put up against what John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin did, my aesthetic would be, if I put some other music up to that, it would have to be, that's what I use. Those things is what I use as what I think is great. And that's my aesthetic. That has changed because you can't find new music made that you can compare to that music or to those people that make that music. So am I making sense?
Oh
Is
yeah.
my translation coming right?
Yeah, yeah. No, 100%.
Okay.
I'm getting you. I'm feeling you.
Yeah. That's what's different.
So, what things constitute the Lenny White aesthetic? Like what are the rules? What are the standards? What are the things when cuz I mean, the thing I love about your career is, you know, you've started um with Miles Davis and Bitches Brew. You've done all these great jazz records. You've played with, Santana. You've done Latin rock. You've done, almost P Funk level stuff with 29. Um, you've done all these different things, even some early hip hop you guys kind of did in the late 80s, early 90s. Um, w- because it doesn't seem to be a genre thing. It seems to be like a level of creation that allows you to attain to that level. What are the things? Are there things that like must-haves in the music for you, regardless of genre and style and era?
Well, I just said it. If depending upon the music that I make, if I'm going to make some rock music, I would have to be able to play it, and John Bonham would have to say, "Yeah, you killed it." That's my point of reference. That's my aesthetic. If I was going to make some hip hop music, it would have to be on par of Flavor in Your Ear remix that Biggie and LL, although I did work with LL, Biggie, LL, and all those guys say, yeah, okay, that was right. See, so I'd have to have a point of reference that my music would have to meet for me to be relaxed and say, yeah, okay, I feel good about it.
Now, we're talking about this musical integrity as a thing. Now, are we relating that just to your regular, like the music that comes out under your name or your group's name? Like, because you also have a lengthy session career where you've played sessions for other people. And I'm sure some of those, you probably took for dollars, right? Like every one of us does. Do you still bring that same mentality to session playing for other people?
Yeah, well, but I'm a producer, so this is what happened. What happened was I got called to play on somebody's record, and I got called because they liked what I did. Okay, so then I started to try to write some music, and I'd write something, and somebody would call me and say, "Hey, you know the tune that you did here? Can we record that?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Wow, yeah." And then we'd go in and try to do it. And he said, "Well, yeah, but when you did it, it sounded different. So can you help me get it the way that you did it?" That's when I became a producer.
Okay.
I got an opportunity to do that. I got an opportunity to write music that they liked. And then, so that's basically what happens. And for instance, you know, uh, um, I was recording a record and Stanley was recording a record. And he had a couple of musicians that he had gotten together to do his record. And he said, "Man, I need you to come and help me produce this record because this guy and this guy is not working right, but I know that you can get them to do this." So I got to get to be a producer. So I don't do things. I don't do things for. I don't make a whole bunch of money for me to be doing it like that. So I'm doing a record right now that's really, really a great record. A violinist, and it's a really interesting translation because he is true. He's a Juilliard graduate. He's true to what it is that he does. He plays amazing violin, and he's written some music that's great. And he's been influenced by hip hop. So there's both of these things coexisting on this project that he's done. And I think that it's one of the best translations of that because you have two totally different musical genres that are not supposed to coexist. So it's always a challenge. And what keeps me on my toes is the challenge of matching integrity.
That's a good one too. I like this. I like this idea of musical integrity. So let's dive deeper into that. So we're talking about producing. When someone calls you for producing, whether it's another musician or an artist, I mean, you've produced a lot of different people. I mean, you've produced Shaka Khan, for goodness sakes. When someone calls you to produce a record, whoever it be, what is your process in working with an artist? Like, are there discussions beforehand? Are there trying to figure out what they're trying to do? Are you just going in blind and just trying to make the best music possible? What are your goal? I get not goals, but I guess starting practices as a producer when you go into a session.
It actually depends. If you were called to be the president of the United States, how would you start? What would you do? There's so many different angles and so many different situations that you have to rise to the occasion and deal with. You need to have research. So that's what I do. If someone asks me to produce a record for them, I find out who they are and what it is that they do and what successes they've had and try to see if I can reach those levels. And in the meantime, talk with them and say, hey, man, you know what? That's great. Have you ever thought about this? And that goes back to me listening to the music that I listened to growing up. If I was to take anything from the Beatles, I'd listen to Penny Lane and I'd say, man, there's a pocket trumpet being played on that tune. And who brought that to that music?
Mm-hmm.
Who was it?
I don't know.
Who was the producer of the Beatles?
George Martin. George Martin.
Yeah, George Martin.
Okay.
See, so here's the thing. George Martin bringing that aspect of the full genre of music and bringing it to a pop band like the Beatles and infusing that in there. It was great. Then you get Owner of a Lonely Heart, which is probably the first digital record, big hit digital record. And who was behind that?
Trevor Horn, I believe, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these guys influence how I look. So here it is. Shaka Khan's got millions of big R&B hit records. So she does something with Arif Martin, and she does a long time ago in the 40s, and the memory still lingers on. I said, oh, wow. Now, I had worked with Shaka before this. I had done a version of Lady Madonna that Shaka sang on.
Oh, wow. Where's that at? I got to find that one.
Oh, that's on the record called Streamline.
Okay.
Check that out.
I
That's
gotta
the
check.
first time I worked with her. But so she's Shaka Khan doing a Beatles tune. Okay. So then after the memory still lingers on, I said, man, Shaka could do a jazz record. So I call her up and I say, hey, man, would you like to make a jazz record? She said, me? I said, yeah. She said, well, who are you going to use? I said, I'm going to use Freddie Hubbard, Joe Henderson, Chick Corea, Stanley Clarke, and myself. And she says, you think that they'll do that? I said, if you say you'll do it, I'll get them to do it.
Yeah.
I called everybody. Everybody said the same thing. I called Freddie. I said, hey, man, you want to make a jazz record with Shaka Khan? Shaka Khan? I said, yeah. Well, if she'll do it, I'll do it. Everybody said the same thing. So my point being is a lot of times if someone calls me to do a record with them, I look at what it is that they do.
Yeah.
And then I ask the question to myself, could you make this work? Man, that would be a great idea. Then I talk to them. I said, man, you ever think about, and that's what really makes something very, very interesting, is when you take a great actor and put them in a situation that they've never been in before and put them in a scene. Okay. Training Day.
Okay.
When Denzel Washington did Training Day, I said to my wife, I swear, he's going to win an Oscar for this because this is his Tony Montana.
Yeah. Dang.
When you take somebody who's noted for doing this, and you put them in a situation that you've never seen them in before, that makes fodder for somebody to say, wow, let me check this out. I don't know if this is going to work. And it's up to you to make that work. So that's I'm a big movie fan. And producing records is like directing movies.
Dang. That's a great analogy. I love it. I feel that way too. I've done a lot of production work, and a lot of times it is just like you said, just like pushing the artist to, hey, why don't we try this and take it a little further? And it's kind of like reaching it's like you take your style and you take their style and you think you're gonna try to match them, but you end up going to a whole new place,
Exactly.
I think that's really the beauty of it.
Yes, and that's what gives you, I'm trying to, wow, this is going to be very interesting to try to match this and do that. That's what we did with Return to Forever. Return to Forever was a samba band.
I mean, come on now. That's they're a little more than that, I
Chick
think.
Corea, no. Chick Corea would tell you that.
Really?
He would tell you that. I'll never forget, man. Okay. I had worked with Stanley, with Joe Henderson. I had worked with Chick on Brew. So we hadn't played together. So they are in Japan. And that band breaks up with Flora, Ayeto, and Joe Farrell. And they have a gig, Keystone Corner in San Francisco. Chick calls me from Tokyo. Hey, man, Stanley and I are coming to San Francisco. Would you play a week with us at the Keystone Corner? I'm in San Francisco because I'm working in a band called Azteca. And I said, yeah, I'm going to be here. Sure, let's come. Let's do it. So they came and we worked a week as a trio. This was the first time I'm doing Return to Forever. And we're doing the music that Chick had written for saxophone player. Stan Getz.
Okay.
We did that music and some other tunes that he had written for Return to Forever. And it worked out to be absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So the last night, Chick says to me, listen, man, I want to start an electric Return to Forever. Would you come back to New York and play with me and Stanley and we'll start that? And there were two guitar players that sat in that Sunday night, Barry Finnerty and Bill Connors. And he chose Bill Connors to go back to New York and to play. Now, I'm in San Francisco working with Azteca. This is a new band. And Neil Sean and Paul Jackson, Tom Harrell, they're all in this band together. And this band was at the convention, CBS convention in London at the Grosvenor House Hotel. And at the time, the president of Columbia was
You're talking about Clive Davis?
Clive Davis, yes,
Yeah.
Clive Davis. And Clive Davis introduces his new band at midnight. And that new band was Azteca
Oh, wow.
that I was in. Okay. So now I'm in San Francisco after recording that record with Azteca. And Chick asks me to come back to New York to start this new electric Return to Forever. So I said, no, Chick, I think I'm going to stay here and be a part of this. He says, okay, that's cool. So he and Stanley go back. He and Stanley and Bill Connors go back, and they get Steve Gadd.
Oh my gosh.
So this is just, you don't know this. I'm telling you this.
Yeah.
This is it. And so I'm still in San Francisco. So maybe about 3 or 4 months go by. And while I'm in San Francisco, downtime, I get a call from this manager, Herbie Herbert. And he says, hey, listen, man, would you do a session at SIR with Ross Valerie and Neil Sean? Now, I'm big friends with Carlos and Mike Shreve and Greg Rowley, Santana guys, you know. So Greg Rowley is leaving Santana. And so I said, sure, I'll do a jam session. So I have a jam session with Ross and Neil. And they're freaking out, man. Oh man, this is facts. Whoa. So Chick calls me and says, hey man, come on back, man. Steve Gadd wants to do studio work. And you know, we really like for you to come back and play. I said, okay. Yeah, I think it's cool. So just check us out. So at the same time, Neil and Ross say, hey man, we're starting this new band with Greg Rowley, and really we would love for you to be the drummer. And I say, oh man, I can't, because I'm gonna go back and play with Chick, do Return to Forever. And they say, okay, we understand it. You know what that band was, right?
It came Journey. Is it Journey?
It's Journey.
Oh my God. You messed up, Lenny.
It's Journey.
You messed up. I mean,
So
Return to
go
Forever
back.
is great, but that paycheck from Journey, man. Wow.
I go, and they get Ainsley Dunbar to do it.
Yeah.
So Ainsley Dunbar does it. And you know, he was with
great drummer.
Yeah, he's
he played with Bowie
drummer.
and a bunch of other people too.
Yeah. And so that's the whole thing with Return to Forever. And the first concert that we did was at the Berkeley Community Theater. And Todd Barkin, who had the club, Keystone Corner, was the first guy to put that Return to Forever band together and show it. So
Dang,
you never
man, what a
know.
story! What a story! Do you ever wonder, like, you see Don't Stop Believing with, like, 20 billion streams on Spotify, and you're like, it could have been me. That could have been me.
Yeah, no. I mean, for a minute I did. For a minute I said, "Wow, man, I could have done that." But then again, I don't know. It might have been different. It definitely would have been different if I played in that kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Because I was getting myself together to do that. And I did that with Return to Forever.
Yeah.
Because that was when me being in Return to Forever, Chick and Stanley wanted to go, and they didn't want me to go that either. They wanted me to go boom back, boom back, boom back, so they could do that.
Yeah.
And I said, man, no, I don't want to do that, man. I want to, I want to play.
You want to shred. You want to shred.
Yeah, exactly. So it was interesting. I don't regret it at all. I don't regret it. No.
I mean, and I mean, to have the option between the two is just wild. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do have to ask this question because I am a guitar player, and no offense to Bill Connors. Bill Connors is great. But what was it like to introduce Al Di Meola into that group? Because obviously when Al Di Meola joins Return to Forever, it's like, it's like Ringo joining the Beatles. Like, it just becomes the Beatles all of a sudden to me, and when Al Di Meola joins, it just this whole new level of game happens in Return to Forever. The compositions get wilder and the solos get crazier, and it pushes everybody in these new directions, both you and Stanley and Chick. What was your initial impressions of Al Di Meola?
Well, we knew that Al was going to be a great guitar talent, but he had to work through getting a sound. He didn't have a sound. Bill Connors was, to this day, is one of the iconic sounds. I mean, he really.
Yeah, and I don't want to put any disrespect to Bill Connors at all. Like, I just, it's just one of those things where, I think Al to me is like, when I think of Return to Forever, I think of U4 with
I can understand. I can understand that.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was different for us because Chick really was not a guitar fan. He really didn't like the guitar from the perspective of it being part of this thing. He had to change because he didn't have a guitar in the first Return to Forever. He had somebody that played horn, flute, and, saxophone. So it was interesting because he was getting used to it somewhat with Bill. And then when Al came in, he had somebody that could play the lines that he wanted to have played. But Al had to get his sound together, and he did. Matter of fact, to me, quite honestly, and I'm not trying to say this way, but his sound on Venusian Summer was classic, real Al Di Meola sound. It was he and Corea together on Prince of the Sea. It's incredible. It's beautiful. Really is great. So we got somebody in Return to Forever then that Chick started to write lines that were really integral lines to play. And it did become something different at that point. It became virtuistic.
One of the things about Return to Forever that I'm really fascinated with is, everybody's doing crazy chops and the arrangements are insane, but it still feels cohesive, like a group. Like they're everyone does a good job of staying out of each other's way, but still having their moment to shine. Um, in the arrangement process for those songs, was there ever any like I don't want to say experimentation to figure out the sound, but when it came to, I mean, when it came to the arrangements, was there experimentation involved? I mean, because the group has so much groove and it has so much power and it has so much interplay. But again, like it doesn't feel like my thing is, if I feel like if I was in a group that talented, I feel like everybody, and there are examples of this where great musicians have gotten together in a room and everyone just overplays. You know what I mean? What helped Return to Forever not become that? I guess is my question.
Compositions.
Okay. Yeah.
The
That's fair.
compositions were thought out to be representative of what we really wanted to happen with the music. And the translation was fantastic translation. I mean, Chick is a amazing composer. Amazing. We there's a friend of mine who did a tribute for me actually it was in March of this year. And what we did is we got Romantic Warrior to be done with a 50-piece orchestra.
Wow.
And Chick wrote that for four musicians, but to transcribe and translate that for a full orchestra is incredible. Incredible. Yes, it was amazing. Truly amazing.
All right. So, Lenny, we've talked a bunch about different music making processes. I do want to ask you one question about drums. And this will be kind of the last question in the main section here. How does one improve their rhythm and their groove?
Improve? See, the earth has a rhythm. And the closer you can get to how that beats, the best you can translate what it is that you want to translate. So when you say improve your rhythm, you have to definitely be listening. You have to play within the process of the translation of how the earth beats. This might sound really crazy, but everybody has a heartbeat. The earth has a heartbeat too. And we talked about this earlier on in our conversation about how music and life somehow has gotten off to the point where it's not the same. And you can say this, you can go back to the point when you listened to music and it was on point. Your life, the lives around you, everything, the plants, the animals was much more on point in rhythm. So when you say improve your rhythm, you have to be able to, aside from all the minutiae that you hear, you have to really kind of open up and hear the rhythm of the earth. If you can do that, then you can be more in time and in rhythm.
How have you ever felt a period where you were not connected to Mother Earth when you're learning these rhythms? Like, have you ever felt like never? You've always felt like you've locked in?
Yeah.
how does one, if you met somebody, like you do some teaching, if you met somebody who was not locked in.
Oh, I I have met many. I have met many. And you know what? In talking to them and telling them that, you know what, you're not in time. And these are people that have that are graduate students that have studied in this university, that university, and come as a graduate student to NYU.
What would you tell them in order to connect to that central rhythm of Earth?
I'd have to make them aware that there is,
Is there a way to do that?
by talking to them, showing them, and seeing if they can identify and hear it. And how you identify and hear it is you take what rhythms you're playing and see how they translate to whoever it is that you're playing with.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with that. Uh, is there anything you think that, like, is there any way to look at rhythm and groove, and because I mean, no, I guess you answered it, because is really just like connecting. Like, what about when you're playing with other people? Is it kind of a similar process then? Because I mean, like, it's one thing when you're practicing by yourself, but when you're connecting with other musicians, it does feel. Is it still like you? Is it a job of you both connecting to that rhythm as well? Like when you're playing with.
Yes. Here's the key. What do you think, excuse me, is the highest dynamic in society? When I mean by dynamic, I mean by like love, uh, you know, different things like that, which would be considered to be a dynamic, is something that happens in society that you follow.
What would I think? Probably like power, I think would be one, maybe something that is that kind of what we're talking about?
It's kind of what we're talking about, but if power was the highest dynamic in this society, we would probably be adhere to that now.
Okay.
That would probably be a dynamic that now is prevalent. Power.
Okay.
So, if power is not, would you consider? See, if I could say this to you, and then you say, love.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I don't think that love is the highest dynamic in society. I think that trust is.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, when you use that with music, if you have a band that all the people in the band trust each other, that's when music happens. And that's when magic happens with the music. Trust. John Coltrane's band, Miles Davis's band, Jimi Hendrix's band, Led Zeppelin, they all trusted each other. And when that happens, you get magic. So, if me as a teacher, I can get my students to trust themselves and to trust the others that they play with, they're going to hear that rhythm. And everybody will trust the way they hear that rhythm will line up and sync. And that creates synergy.
Yeah. Wow. What a brilliant concept, man. I think every musician should take heed of those words. I think in this world where everyone's practicing their all their rudiments and everything like that, we need to get back down to trust,
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, Lenny, that's going to conclude the main portion of our interview here. I would love to ask you some quick rapid fire questions before we
Sure.
wrap up today. Sound good?
Okay. Yep.
What is the last album that blew your mind?
That's very hard for me to, because there's a bunch of them that I always go back to.
Well, even it could be an older record. It doesn't have to be anything new.
I know this, but there's a whole bunch of them. I, you know, I can't get past Love Supreme. I can't get past Miles Smiles. I can't get past Band of Gypsies. I can't get past Daphne and Chloe.
What's Daphne and Chloe? What's that? I know. I'm here to learn. What's Daphne and Chloe?
It's classical music.
Okay.
I'm telling you. I listened to that record, and that's where Venetian Summer comes from.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, now I really have to go check it out. Is there a specific recording of
There's most of them are great recordings. You could let me just see if I could find one. Pierre Boulez,
Okay.
Ravel, Daphne and Chloe.
Okay. We'll definitely link to that in the show notes, 100%. Okay.
Yes.
Who is a drummer that deserves more attention?
Deserves more attention. Geez, I got a lot of them too.
Well, you can name them off. There's no harm in that. We talked to Simon Phillips here a couple last year, and we asked him that question, and he spent 20 minutes talking about all his favorite drummers. So don't feel, I know it said rapid fire, but you can take as long as you want.
Yeah, but you see, it's not my favorite drummers. You ask who should get more recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know a bunch of guys like to get more recognition. I mean, I have some of my students that have just started to make their mark that people should take notice of. And they will take notice of because they're great. I mean, Mike Clark is my dear friend. That's a person that definitely should get more recognition.
Who is Mike Clark?
Oh, so you don't know who Mike Clark is?
I don't, man. I don't know everything.
I
don't know everything, man.
Okay. Thrust.
Okay.
Herbie Hancock.
Okay.
Actual Proof.
Okay.
Mike Clark was in Herbie Hancock's Headhunters.
Oh, okay. Did he play on the record with Chameleon? Did he play on that record?
Not that record.
That's Harvey Mason Jr., right? Yeah.
No, not Harvey Mason Jr. That's Harvey Mason Sr.
Harvey Mason Sr. Okay.
Yeah, that played on that.
Okay.
I mean, but yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, I have some students that are really, really great, but they're going to be heard. They're going to be heard.
Just takes time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If you lost all of your gear in a tragic house fire and had to start over with only $1,000, what would you get?
A cymbal.
Just a cymbal?
I would get a ride cymbal first.
Really?
That's the DNA, baby. That's one of the things that young drummers don't do is give a real point of reference. Your ride cymbal is a point of reference. You should be able to be recognized by your translation and your ride cymbal. And then I would get a snare drum.
Okay. You could probably get those two for $1,000, I feel like. Maybe not the highest end. No.
I don't know. Could be.
Yeah. What is a concert you attended that surprised you?
I went to this, my wife took me to this concert. Now it's been a few years ago, called Rocktopia. And basically what it was is there was an orchestra that did classic rock tunes with singers, and it was amazing. There was this band did uh, um, Led Zeppelin's what's the tune? Da 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 da
Oh, Kashmir.
Kashmir,
Yeah.
and it sounded like Led Zeppelin with an orchestra. It was absolutely killing, and I got this concept in my head, and that's how we did Romantic Warrior with a 50-piece orchestra.
Oh man.
It's unbelievable. It was so great. It was so great.
How do you recover from a bad gig?
I forget about it.
Is it easy? Is it easy for you to forget about it?
It's easier now than it used to be. You should have a body of work, not just one gig. And what you have to be able to, you have to know and accept that failure is a part of life. And what you really need to do is learn how to really learn from failing at something. Probably failing at something makes you the better person because you know what not to do.
Can't disagree with that. What took you from a beginner musician to an intermediate musician?
Trust.
And what took you from an intermediate musician to an advanced musician?
More trust.
All right. And who's a drummer you look up to?
Tony Williams. No, the Magnificent Seven.
Okay.
The Magnificent Seven. There's the Magnificent Seven, and then there's the ancillary.
Okay.
And these are the people that have shaped my career. Art Blakey, Max Roach, Kenny Clark, Philly Joe Jones, Elvin Jones, Roy Haynes, and Tony Williams. And the ancillary, John Bonham, Jabo Starks, and Clyde Stubblefield.
I mean, that's a banging list right there.
Yes.
Are you a big fan of any of the prog rock drummers? I know you mentioned prog rock, but are you a fan of like Bill Bruford or
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alan White I knew really well.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so yes, Bill Bruford, yes.
Mhm.
Cozy Powell,
Yeah.
yes. Yes. I was fans. Yes, I've been a fan.
Yeah.
Buddy Miles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Legendary. All right. And last question, Lenny. What do people get wrong about being a musician?
What they get wrong is that it takes a great deal of effort and you have to make good musical choices.
So hold on, let me clarify. You're saying that people get wrong that it takes a bunch of work to be a musician?
Yeah, a lot of people don't think that it takes a lot of work to
They
be
don't think it
a
takes. Okay.
musician.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
Yes,
Okay. I just wanted to
yes.
clarify. It was
Oh, yeah.
like
Please clarify that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Well, Lenny, I appreciate you coming on the Rhinestone podcast, man. This has been a wide-ranging conversation. This was so much fun. I can't believe all the ground we got to cover, and I would love to do a round 2 with you some other time. I feel like I didn't.
Sure.
I asked. I have 10 questions here. I only asked 3 of the main questions because we went so many other different directions. I didn't even bring up Jaco or Marcus Miller. I had all these people I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about 29 with you. I mean, there was so many things. I didn't even bring up any of them.
Let me know.
Yeah, let's do another one soon for sure.
Yeah, sure.
So, what do you got going on in the next 12 months, and where can people find you?
I'm going to be doing a bunch of things here and there. I'm putting together the Echoes of an Era project, but some of those people are not here anymore to play it. But John Patitucci, Javon Jackson's going to play. Dr. Eddie Henderson is going to play. Orrin Evans is going to play, and Lisa Fisher is going to do singing.
Oh man, what a group!
Yeah, so we're going to do that, and there's some talk of Mr. DiMeola, Mr. Clark, and myself possibly recreating again the thing with the orchestra.
Oh man. All right. We'll keep it on the down low for now, but everyone's got to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And where's a good place for people to keep up with you?
You can keep up with me at Lenny White. No, Lenny Bone at Gmail.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Keep up with me there.
Good. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much, Lenny, for coming on the Rhinestone podcast. And yeah, we'll definitely do a round 2 soon.
Dana, this was fantastic, man.
Thank you so much.